You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
So happy to be with you here today. Excited, as always, to get started with our Motivation and Mindset Monday. It is literally the most important thing that we can do is get our mind in the right place to reframe our thinking, to reframe the way that we see the world and hopefully the way that the world sees us. Because without us starting with the mind first, nothing else will fall into alignment for you. So that's why I truly believe that, especially on Mondays, that we get our body, we get our brain set up for the week. And now that should start with your Sunday night routine that we've spoken about in the past that enables you to already plan out what your Monday will look like. But one topic I want to talk about today that's very, very important to me and something that I see in my practice quite often is this. It's the idea of basically falling into a bad mood. So a lot of people out there, myself included, you have bad days, right? Everyone has a bad day. But what happens is sometimes that bad day sticks. And what I mean by that is this, is that you begin to slide from one day into the next where the habits that you don't want to have in your life because you know that they're going to lead to actions that you don't want to take, well, they start to take hold. And what happens is we get into that lower mood. We get into a little bit more apathy, just not caring about anything, right? Because we just kind of feel so overwhelmed. A lot of times that leads to poor food choices. We move less, we walk less, we sometimes oversleep or we overcoach, right? We hang out on that couch for way too long. Well, when this happens, it begins to create a vicious cycle. And by that I mean this. When we start to sleep in a little bit more, we feel a little bit more sluggish, right? We hit the snooze button a little bit more. The fatigue starts to set in more because our body does not wake up to that normal cortisol rhythm. We kind of get that up and down, up and down. Our body doesn't know if we should be asleep or not be asleep, right? Because we're not getting to that diphasic rhythm of being up in the morning and then hopefully getting tired then in the evening. But the other thing is this, if we're not moving our body, if we're not getting our 10,000 steps, and we are not going to the gym ever, right? If we're not doing that, well, that inability to move our body, or I should say the decision to not move our body is going to lead to less circulation. It's going to lead to poor breathing patterns. It's going to lead to more stiffness in the body, stiffness in the muscles, less oxygen to the tissues, and less oxygen to the brain. All of that will lead to more sluggishness. And really, there's no wonder why we have so much fatigue, we have so much apathy, we have so much low mood. Our bodies are low. And that we haven't even gotten into yet the poor food choices. When we make these poor food choices, in the moment they feel good because they give us a temporary boost of dopamine or serotonin. It raises our mood, at least temporarily. It can raise our blood sugar. We can start to feel a little bit better, but then we get the crash. And when we get the crash, we also have the inflammation along with it. We've got the basically imbalanced immune system. Our bodies now are attacking things that they shouldn't necessarily be attacking because they're elevated. They're on high alert. And so what I want you to do is I want you to think about this. By letting that bad day slide from one day to the next, you're setting yourself up to make it much more difficult to pull yourself out of it. And that's what I want to talk about today because we all have a bad day. There's no doubt about that. But the problem is this. When one bad day turns into 2 or 3, what we're left with is almost half our week. About 42% or so of our week is shot. Now, if you look at it, okay, say, well, it's one bad week. Half that week is basically gone, right? You try to pull yourself back on track by maybe Thursday or so, but then you have Thursday, you have Friday, and then all of a sudden it's the weekend, and then there might be a little bit more excessive drinking or eating or, again, not getting to the gym, and you're not able to pull yourself back into that rhythm. And that's why it's so important on this Monday that we do start our day right, that we are exercising, that we are eating right, that we're getting ourselves back on track. Because right now, again, as I said, 15% or so of your week is one day. So think of it that way. If you have one bad day, that's still 15% of your week. Well, what if you had one bad day a week? Think about that. What if you had one bad day a week? Every single week, that's 15% of your year, right? 30% or two, if you have 2 bad days a week, and almost, let's say about half your week if you have 3 bad days, if they just kind of slide together. Now you can start to see why people begin to start to feel more and more sick. They begin to look more and more sick, right? And they act that way. And again, if you start to act that way, if you start to act apathetic, if you start to act sluggish, it's going to lead to more of that. Because those types of actions, or the feelings of apathy, the feelings of being down, the feeling of being overwhelmed, leads you then to the things you want to take comfort in. So it leads you to want to eat more of those foods that you probably know that you shouldn't, right? A little bit more, maybe ice cream or pizza or sandwiches or just bread and pasta. All of those things, they're all processed foods, right? And they feel great and they taste great, but we eat them and then we start to feel the repercussions that next day. We start to feel a little bit more bloated. We have a little bit more water retention. We just don't feel great overall. So then what do? Well, we start to drink a little bit more caffeine, right? Because we need to wake our bodies up out of that sluggishness. But we're not really waking them up. What we're doing is we're kickstarting them. We're basically just kicking that tired horse. So we're forcing the body to produce more of that adrenaline, more of that cortisol. And then what's it doing? Well, it's starting to then lower our metabolism to a greater degree. It's starting to lower our thyroid. It's starting to mess with our hormones, lower testosterone in men, lower progesterone in women. And that's what we see every single day in our practice. So I want you to know that it's not just the body that we're trying to heal, it's also the mind. The two work together. I want you to think of it as this way. Your brain, think of your brain or your mind as your conscious thoughts, right? But think of your subconscious mind as your body. Think of the subconscious as the nervous system, right? It's giving you feedback from past events, from programming, from whatever it might be. But if it's also getting day-to-day thoughts of just feeling down, sad or whatever it might be, all of those things affect the body, right? So the brain affects the body. If we tell our body, well, it's an off day, it's a bad day, your body's going to have that same bad day as well. But here's the good news, is that we can turn this around. We really can. And that's why literally 2 parts of my de-stress protocol, the de-stress protocol that I use for every single person in my private practice and what I teach the integrative health practitioners that I'm coaching right now and that I'm certifying to be this next generation of health practitioners, is that you can turn it around, but you can't just help people with the supplements. You can't even just help them with the diet or the exercise. All of those things are important. They're absolutely important, and I've been practicing and preaching them and trying to tell people that for years. But I found out many, many years ago, with myself included, well, I was my first test subject, right? I was my first test subject for a decade. And what I found is that I actually had more energy the days I was happier. Now, I was still the same sick kid, I really was. But how did I have more energy on the days where I was out with my friends and I was having a good time? I just had more energy. Well, I wasn't doing anything different. If not, I was probably eating maybe worse foods, right? Or maybe I was in college consuming some alcohol. But I still had more energy. And it was something I started to really toy with because I didn't get it. I hadn't gotten deep enough into psychology. And again, even the psychology that they teach in college, because I've done many, many college courses on psychology, read many, many textbooks. But what they don't talk about is the biofeedback, right? The biofeedback from the mind to the body of thinking the thoughts that give you energy and how that plays out at a cellular level. How it plays out with the mitochondria, how it plays out with your immune system, how it actually lowers cortisol. They never taught me that in psychology. They certainly never taught me that in many of the books that I read as well. But that's why when we help people as a cancer support, or we help people with chronic fatigue, or we help people with POTS, or any type of these issues, when we help them to laugh, we are actually helping them to get better. And I know that seems really, really strange, but it only seems strange when you don't look at it from a science perspective, right? Because most of us in our Western-based philosophy, we need to know why. We need to know the research behind it. But the truth is this, when you laugh or when you meditate or you're out with a dinner with friends or you're having fun with a holiday gathering with family, if that's enjoyable to you, anything that's enjoyable to you, that brings you peace, that brings you happiness, right? That you absolutely love and enjoy lowers cortisol. It lowers stress hormones. What happens when you lower stress hormones? Remember, we did podcasts the last couple weeks on this, right? What do you do when you lower stress hormones? Well, you rebalance the female hormones. You rebalance progesterone. You allow progesterone to rise again. What about low thyroid? Well, when you lower the catecholamines, right? When you lower those adrenal medulla-based stress hormones such as norepinephrine and epinephrine, when you lower those and you lower the glucocorticoids known as cortisol, you allow then your thyroid to not only make more active thyroid inside the cell as T3, but you allow less of it to become reverse T3, which means you get to keep more of that. So now all of a sudden you have better circulation. You most likely have better cholesterol profile, better lipid panel, right? You most likely have a boosted metabolism. The circulation, the hands aren't as cold, right? The feet aren't as cold. All of these things relate back to vasoconstriction, which happens under what? Fight or flight. Which happens with what? You're stressed. So if we begin to relax the body, we can start to see how it will begin to heal. Now, really, I can help with supplements with that. I can help with a lot. But what I need to do is to get this to stick. I need you to understand that the way to get truly well, yes, we'll give you the boost with nutritional supplements. We'll give you the boost with a lot of things because we need to push back harder than your dis-ease is pushing on you. I want to repeat that. The reason I use nutritional supplements is because they're condensed forms of herbs, of vitamins, of food. I need those condensed forms. I need those extracts. I need all of that because I need to push back harder. And your digestive system isn't strong enough right now. So I need to push back harder with all of those adaptogens, all of those vitamins, and all the electrolytes, and all the minerals, and all the essential fatty acids, because I know that the dis-eases and the stress of your body is pushing back just as hard. So we need to give you that boost for the first 3 to 4 months. That's why we do it. Then we begin to taper after that, because hopefully by then the lifestyle begins to stick. But remember, if the lifestyle is not sticking, you're going to need to then always push back with those nutritional supplements. So we try to find that happy medium. What I like to say is this: as you begin to see and feel yourself slide, you slide into the lower mood, the anger, right? The rage, the irritability, whatever it might be. Remember, I've spoke about this before with the emotion podcast on Ayurveda. I spoke about how the Vata gets more anxious. They get overwhelmed. The Pitta, though, they get more irritable. They get more angry. They have more of a temper. And the Kapha is more of towards the jealousy and the envy and the kind of drawing away, the loneliness, those types of things, the depression, the low mood. So what I say to you is this: you know yourself. You know what you begin to slide into. I know myself with the Pitta mindset. I don't really feel anxious. Sometimes I'll feel overwhelmed. There's no doubt about that. I think most of us do with this Western-based mentality of we always take on just a little bit too much, right? And then when we're at our worst, though, we've taken on way more than we can handle. But me, I go right towards more of the anger, the lack of patience, the irritability. That's my wheelhouse. That's where I fall into. I don't fall into as much of the depression or the low mood, although I've been there. Trust me, I was there for a long time. You tell a 17-year-old kid that he's never getting well, that he's just going to have to learn how to manage his diseases, you're going to see someone who's pretty depressed, in a pretty low mood, and have complete insomnia, right? But eventually that Pitta mindset took over, and it said, you know what? I'm not going to let these doctors be right. I'm not going to let this be the story of my life. I refuse. I simply refuse. I don't know how I'm going to get well, but I just refuse to live this life. And if this is it, if I'm going to be sick like this the rest of my life, then I'm not going to be a victim of it. I'm going to live the very best life that I can, even if this is the best it's going to be. Well, as I began to grow and as I began to learn and I began to meet more and more mentors, they passed the torch. They taught me things that I needed to know. And none of them had it all. None of them had it all, but many of them had it right. I started to put it together. And then finally, I met one mentor. One mentor had it all. They put it all together for me. They were in their late 60s. And when I met them, they really shone the light on what I needed to do. But here's the interesting thing. They were the very first person. They were the very first person to tell me, you need to work on your mind as much as you do your body. Because I was almost there. By the time I met them, I was getting well, but I would always relapse. I would relapse into pneumonia. I would relapse into insomnia. I would relapse into all my poor forms. And I would fall back and I didn't know why. And it was because I was allowing my mind to also burn out my body in ways that I didn't even know, because I was prone to the poor mood and I was prone to the irritability and I was prone to the lack of patience. All these things would also keep me up at night. So it would affect my sleep. And that, of course, would affect my immunity. And then my immunity, when I would get run down and get those sinus infections or pneumonia, well, that would affect my mood. It would affect my ability to exercise, and it would affect my wanting to keep eating good, healthy food, because I was like, what was the point? What's the point of me spending all this money on good food and trying to get better and nutritional supplements if I'm not, or I'm continuing to relapse? And then I met my mentor, and she started to teach me about the Heart Math Institute. She was the first person to speak to me about meditation and yoga and heart rate variability. It was absolutely phenomenal. And again, this is over a decade ago. No one's really talking about that back then, or at least not where I was from. Maybe they were in other sectors. That's possible. That's absolutely true. But not where I'm from. Again, I'm just a normal, totally normal kid out of Medford, Massachusetts. Never experienced this. No one in my community knew anything about this. There was no meditation or no yoga where I came from, for sure. There was a $10 a month gym that everybody belonged to, and I belonged to that as well. That's just the way it was. We didn't even have group exercise. We didn't have a group exercise room there. There was no such thing as spin. There was none of that. So that's where I came from. And I think many people, maybe yourself listening to this, was in the same exact place, but that's okay. Because at any point in your life, once you're open to it, once you've heard the words, you can begin to go deeper. You can begin to see how your mind, how your thoughts are affecting your biochemistry. And that biochemistry can make you one of the healthiest people in the world. It can make you one of the most energetic, one of the most vibrant people in the world, or it can absolutely drag you down like an anchor and pull you to the bottom. And I've been in both places, and now that I've made it out to the other side, and I'm not saying it was easy. I don't want people to think that this journey was easy. I want you to know that I worked and I continued to work until I fine-tuned it till it was perfect. And it was absolutely perfect. And everyone can do that if you want it. You honestly can. And my path is going to be different than your path, but we're all going to get that through the same way. The de-stress protocol, that's why I put it together for you. It's in the rain barrel effect. It's the diet, it's the exercise, it's the stress reduction, it's the toxin removal, it's the rest and the calming of that sympathetic nervous system in fight or flight, it's the emotional balance, it's the nutritional supplements, and it's the success mindset. You can do all of those things. You can customize it for your life. But I want you to know this, is that I found a direct correlation between how good I felt and how healthy I was the more I began to change my mindset. What did I need to change it to? I needed to change it to one of positivity. One that even when I'm not in my best place, I'm still better than I was before. And even when I'm not in my best place, I still have a lot to be grateful for in my life. And even though there's more I want to accomplish and I don't have everything that I want right now, that's okay because I'm on the journey. I'm not supposed to have everything right away. I wasn't supposed to have the vibrant health a year after I got sick. And I know that now. And that's really hard for a lot of people because the reason I didn't have it is because I had much to learn. And now, instead of me potentially dying in my 30s or 40s, or who knows, maybe early 50s from Addison's disease or one of the other many debilitating diseases that I had, type 2 diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, POTS, myalgic encephalomyelitis, you name it, right? You name it. Name an inflammatory immune-based issue. I was dealing with it, right? Fibromyalgia, all these things that you don't want to live when you're dealing with these things, right? But here's the thing. I wasn't ready to get better yet. I had more to learn. And you might have more to learn as well with getting into the right relationship, getting into the right career, with transforming your body, with transforming your health, transforming your spirituality. And I'm still trying to take every single one of those 5 areas to the next level as well. But the reason I didn't get well is because I had more to learn. I didn't realize that I was on the path to not only creating and recreating the body of my dreams, basically, the health of my dreams, exactly what I wanted, that I never had even as a kid. I didn't have this as a child. Because of all the struggles, I learned more. I would not have read 3,000 plus books. I didn't do that for fun. I didn't do that to try to impress anyone. I had no interest in reading all of those except that I was becoming a student in order to heal this body. So I had more to learn. I had more people to meet. I had places to travel to, clinics to go to, and I found out about all sorts of things. A lot of people don't know this, but I'm a certified Reiki instructor. I'm a certified yoga instructor. I have 600 plus hours of massage therapy training. I've been all over the world, studying Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine. I've been in all of the hospitals working there. I've been in the Netherlands studying bioregulatory medicine and Ayurvedic. I've worked doing Tuina and Chinese physiotherapy. I've studied chiropractic. I've studied acupuncture. All of these things, I don't have to be an expert in any one of them, but it was part of my path, right? It was part of my path. It was part of my healing journey. And yours might be very different than mine. It might be in a different place in your life. Yours might be with relationships right now, or it might be finally getting to do the career that you wanted, or it might be losing the 50 to 100 pounds that you just can't seem to shake. Any one of those things I'm telling you right now, don't let it get it down. Don't let it get you down. It does not own you, you own it, because it's part of your body and your mind. The problem is that those dark days, and believe me, I had many of them as well, they start to snowball. And I don't want that for you, because that snowball effect affects both the body and the mind. Now the two are in a vicious cycle. When you eat the wrong foods, when you don't move the body, when you're not doing the things to give your body the health that it needs, it also affects the mind. And then the mind goes low, and it definitely doesn't want you to eat the right foods. It definitely doesn't want you to get you outside, breathing that fresh air or meditating, because you know what? It's saying, I've tried it before and it's not working. Why should I do it again? What's the point? I'm not getting better. I'm not losing the weight. I'm not meeting that right person. I'm never going to get the career that I want, or I don't feel that attunement with the world. I don't have the spirituality that I want. I'm telling you right now, even when you don't see it, you need to believe, you need to keep moving forward towards it. I'm living proof of that, and there are millions of other people like me. If I was the only person, I would say I'm the fluke, I'm the outlier, that's just me. But it's not. And I wasn't working with all the best tools either, meaning I didn't have maybe the finances of the things that I needed to be able to do before. And I didn't have the mentor until I was 27 years old. I didn't know all these things about Kool-Aid and Little Debbie snacks and eating ice cream and drinking cold milk with American chop suey. I didn't know all of these things. I didn't know that you shouldn't be eating fried fish sticks on Friday nights, during Lent. I didn't know these things. I didn't know any of them, right? And so it led to who I was at that point. But that's not a problem, because I decided one day to change. And it wasn't a direct line to success, but I decided one day I'm not going to be the victim. This isn't going to be my life, and I can have a bad day. And I've spoken this before, and this is how I want to close with you today. You're allowed to have a bad day. There's nothing wrong with having a bad day. It's part of experiencing all of the human emotions. It's part of a human being. That's it, and that's okay. What I want you to say is this. Okay, today's a bad day. Today's a bad day. I'm going to go to bed a little bit earlier. Might take a bath tonight. I wake up tomorrow. It's a new day. I'm going to plan out my day tomorrow. Tomorrow is not allowed to be a bad day. And here's why. I'm going to get into my morning routine. I'm going to plan to either work out in the morning when I wake up, or I'm going to make my food for the day. I'm going to get my smoothie all prepped and ready to go. I'm going to have everything so that I set myself up for success, because I'm not the type of person who has 2 bad days in a row. I might have a bad day every once in a while, but certainly I'm not going to plan for it. I'm not going to allow myself to even think that I might have 1 bad day per month, because that's 12 bad days per year. And that's too many for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to understand that bad things may happen in my life. And I will deal with those, but I will not allow them to drag me down. Certainly not on a regular basis. And even when I'm stressed, I feel overwhelmed, I have that temper tantrum, right? I'm feeling irritable. There's that lack of patience. I might feel anxious. I'm still going to go through the motions of a person that wants to live a healthy, great life, of a person that wants it all. They want the career. They want the relationships. They want the health. They want the body that they want, and they want to feel that level of enlightenment, a level of spirituality, a level of connectedness with the world and others around them. I'm telling you right now, if you keep that mindset, you will literally be unstoppable. When will you reach your goals? I don't know. When you will reach your goals, you don't know yet either, but you are working the path. And as long as you work down that path, you have no choice but success. Because the road eventually ends. You will reach it. Of course, you'll zigzag along the way. That's not a problem. We've spoken about that before. Because as you zigzag, you'll learn. You'll learn things that you didn't even know you had questions on. So as you continue down the path, I'm telling you this right now, you will experience a life that you never even imagined you could live. If you do that, you'll be able to have the happiness that you've always wanted, but then you'll be able to share it with others. And that's really what this is all about. Begin to teach, begin to share, begin to lift others up as you rise as well. If you do that, you'll have it all. You really will. That's what I want for you. Thank you so much for tuning in to another Motivation and Mindset Monday. Always a pleasure. And as always, if this podcast was helpful, please do feel free to share it with anyone else it could serve. Before you go, I wanted to share a personal story with you. The real reason I began to get well finally is because I figured out what was wrong with me. And that might seem pretty obvious, but I went from doctor to doctor for over 2 years before discovering at-home functional medicine lab testing. These are the labs that enabled me to finally figure out what was wrong with my hormones, blood sugar, electrolytes, and gut health. And once I knew what was wrong, I could then follow a proven plan in order to rebalance my body from the inside out. This is why I believe so strongly in functional medicine lab testing and why I've made it my mission to share these labs with the world. Now at equa.life, you can order an at-home lab test or a lab bundle for you and your family and be able to complete it within the week. Plus, the EquaLife difference is that you're not left to try to read and figure out these labs on your own. We explain what your lab numbers mean, what they mean in the much bigger picture, and then how to go about rebalancing your body in order to heal. To see our full selection of lab tests or to set up a free lab selection call to find out what labs may be best for you, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. And do remember, we ship these all over the world. To find out more and to set up your free lab selection call, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. That's EQUI.LIFE/labs.